Hello and welcome friends. Jai Bhim to all of you. Myself Bibek Kumar Rajak, I teach economics at Dayal Singh College, University of Delhi. It's indeed a great pleasure and honor for me to deliver a lecture on Dr. Ambedkar and his economic thoughts. This lecture is organized by the Teaching Learning Center, Ramanujan College, University of Delhi, as part of their faculty development program on the theme Dr. Ambedkar and the idea of India. I think it's one of the first FDP organized by this center on Dr. Ambedkar. This is also important that this FDP is organized on the auspicious occasion of 130th birth anniversary of Baba Saheb Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. I am thankful to the organizing committee for organizing a FDP on Dr. Ambedkar and his ideas of India, and also for inviting me to deliver a lecture on economic thought of Dr. Ambedkar. Due to this pandemic, we are forced to interact on online mode and through video lecture. I hope that in future we shall have many more opportunities to deliberate on the issue and mutually benefit ourselves through discussion and deliberation. As suggested by the organizers, I am supposed to speak on the economic thought of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Given the interdisciplinary nature of the faculty development program, as I am informed, where people from different disciplines are participating, I will try to be as simple as possible by leaving aside the technical concepts and ideas put forward by him. I will try to be as simple as possible. For doing so, I have divided my talk in three parts. In the first part, I would like to introduce you to the young scholar or Dr. Ambedkar as a student of economics or an excellent research scholar in economics, from where actually his thoughts and ideas developed. The second part will be on Dr. Ambedkar as a practitioner of economics, the economist in Ambedkar, or the architect of economic policy making. The third part, I will talk about the relevance of Dr. Ambedkar's economic thought in today's economic problems faced by the country. Friends, until very recently, it was hardly known to the country that Dr. Ambedkar was an economist by training. Before I move forward, I wish to share with you the observation by Professor Dilip Haldar, a former professor and head of the Department of Economics, Jadavpur University, West Bengal, about what could be the reason for why Dr. Ambedkar is not known as an economist in this country. He says that auspicious absence of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and his economic thoughts in celebrated works of eminent Indian economic historians begs a question. Ambedkar and his identity as an economist might have escaped their notice because of his fame as the chairman of the drafting committee of the Constitution and as a leader of the backward and downtrodden sections of Indian society. He says that this may be true in case of ordinary citizens of India, but surely this cannot be acceptable for any serious researcher in the area of Indian economic thought. With people with similar or even lesser work, such as R.C. Datta, Dadabhai Naoroji, Madhav Govind Ranade, I mean these were great people, but their works are widely recognized as their economic contribution or historical contribution. However, Dr. Ambedkar widely researched and wrote keeping the nation above all. His writings are for the development of the country. Until recently, even those who study economics are also were also not aware about his contribution to this subject. In 2007, the Nobel laureate Professor Amartya Sen accepted and said in an interview that Dr. Ambedkar is his father in economics. He deserves more than what he achieved. However, he was highly controversial figure in his home country, though it was not reality. Amartya Sen said that his contribution in the field of economics is marvelous and will be remembered forever. Friends, it is really good that after decades of neglect, the economic thoughts of Dr. Ambedkar seem to be gaining currency in the country. While his thoughts on Indian society and politics have garnered more attention, I believe that his economic thoughts also deserve greater attention. To begin with, let me share with you some scholarly contribution made by Dr. Ambedkar as a student or as a research scholar to the subject of economics to understand his economic ideas and thought. Soon after his graduation in 1913 on a scholarship, all of us know that, Dr. Ambedkar went to Columbia University, USA for his master degree. He completed his MA in economics in 1915. I feel that this was the beginning of his journey to become an economist extraordinaire. His 42 odd pages thesis of his master degree was published later as Administration and Finance of East India Company. Friends, we should not forget that it was a time when India was under British colonial rule. This study covered 65 years from the period 1792 to 1857. As I said, I will avoid going into the detail of his research. In this MA thesis, he critically analyzed the prevalence of administration and finance of East India Company. Dr. Ambedkar was of the view that the finances of a country are to be judged from the viewpoint of its developmental expenditure. And among the developmental expenditure of a country, the public works such as roads, canals, electricity and other infrastructure, and on human development such as education and health. Applying the same criteria, he argued that the entire fiscal system of East India Company was a flaw and against the interest of his native nation. Taking this study forward, in his PhD thesis, which he completed from the same university in 1917, titled as The Evolution of Provincial Finance in British India. This work is a sequel of his MA thesis and more detailed study of public finance in the country at that time. This was a pioneering contribution to the field of public finance, as this book, which was published as a book later, is one of the first and only comprehensive study of the center-state relationship at that time, in British India. This study considers a period from 1833 to 1921, almost 90 years, 9 decades. This is a period when the company rule was abolished and India came to direct control of British Crown. In his PhD research, Dr. Ambedkar analyzed the origin, development and mechanism of provincial finance in British India. He also provided an account of changes in the fiscal arrangements of that time from the centralization of government finances for almost 4 decades from 1830s to early 1870s, which failed because he says that it was a faulty fiscal system comprising of injurious taxes and extravagant expenditure. He also critically analyzed the alternative fiscal arrangements of the next 5 decades from early 1870s to early 1920s, such as budget by assignment, budget by revenue and budget by shared revenue, which was implemented after budget by shared revenue was implemented after the Government of India Act 1919. His findings and suggestions have great implications in today's center-state financial relationship in India, which I shall take up little later. Now, let us look at his Doctor of Science thesis or research, which he completed at London School of Economics after a huge hardship in 1923. This is one of his greatest contributions and one of the favorites and most difficult in terms of interpreting for most of the economists who study Dr. Ambedkar, because it is very technical. It is a problem of rupee. It is the problem of rupee, its origin and its solution. I'll try to put it before you without going into the technical details of the study, as it is very technical in nature. This study is in basically 2 parts. The first part is the historical review of how the rupee evolved as a currency in its function as medium of exchange. For doing that, he reviewed more than 120 years period prior to 1921. The second part is even more interesting and technical, where he suggested what should be an ideal currency system for an underdeveloped country like India. Imagine at the age of around 30 years, he dared to criticize the stalwarts like Professor J. M. Keynes and suggesting a suitable currency system for his country against what was suggested by these Western economists for India. At that time, it was widely debated that which of the two currency systems is better, the gold standard or the gold exchange standard. For a developing country like India, Professor Keynes says that Professor Keynes in one of his research paper in 1913 had suggested that gold exchange standard will be more appropriate for a poor country like India, as the paper currency would be cheaper. Dr. Ambedkar actually had serious objections to the gold exchange standard for a developing country like India, as it may lead to inflation, because in this system, in the exchange system, any amount of paper currency can be printed without having a provision of backing by similar stock of gold. As we all know, inflation is the worst kind of taxation, the burden of which falls more on the poor. Now, let us look at how he applied his economics, his learning in economics in real economic problems in this country. I mean, his contribution as an economist can be seen in terms of the social movements he led for abolishing the Khoti system, Maharvatan, or even annihilation of caste. Have a huge economic implication. It is very unfortunate that all of us know about the Finance Commission of India, but we do not know the primary source of the basic principles on which the Finance Commission of India was constituted, which is still continuing as a mechanism of center-state financial relationship in this country. the basic principles of governing the financial relationship between center and state, the state governments in present time, are sourced from the PhD thesis of Dr. Ambedkar, as I mentioned, from USA. He not only did research on the topic, but made sure that the research outputs benefit the country. While making the constitutions, he made constitutional provision under Article 280 to establish the Finance Commission of India. As you all know, currently the 15th Finance Commission recommendations are in operation for the period 1st April 2020 to 31st March 2025. Therefore, we can say that the basic source of inspiration under which world's largest federal democracy is alive. However, in last few years, some controversy and uneasiness can be seen in terms of states are not happy about the non-payment of GST dues by the central government to the state governments. This is precisely what Dr. Ambedkar was critical about, that is the centralization of governance or government finances during the British rule. Despite having lessons from the history, we amended the Article 280 of the Constitution to pave way for the goods and services tax to be implemented. Until a few years ago, even the governors of the RBI would not know that Dr. Ambedkar had played a very important role in the establishment of the Reserve Bank of India. We know that the Royal Commission on Indian Currency and Finance, known as the Hilton Young Commission, submitted its report in 1926. On the basis of this report, 9 years later, on 10th April 1935, RBI was established. Dr. Ambedkar actually had submitted a statement of evidence before this commission in response to the questionnaire issued by the commission to him. Dr. Ambedkar's authority and expertise in monetary economics is fully reflected in this statement of evidence. Based on his authority and expertise in the subject, Dr. Ambedkar was also incorporated as a labor member in the Viceroy's Executive Council. It was equivalent to a minister. Okay, he was there from 1942 to 1946, where he introduced a number of welfare measures for the working class of India. Notable among them are establishment of the employment exchange machinery for taxation on minimum remuneration, tripartite dispute settlement mechanism, fixation of working hours, working conditions such as maternity leave, pay with leave, even today which some of them are providing as a safety net for the labor or the working class in this country. So, making provision of the laborers actually helped in a great way in increasing the labor productivity and therefore income of the laborers and income of the country in the past. Increasing the productivity and income of the labor has great implication for growth of the national income and reduction in the inequality in terms of distribution of income in favor of labor. So, we can say that Dr. Ambedkar was not an armchair economist. He was an economist in thought and action with a rare vision. Apart from labor, Dr. Ambedkar, given his deep understanding of the economy and society, was also given charge of water, power and CPWD, Public Works Department, in Viceroy's Executive Council. In these fields also, he greatly contributed in building water reservoirs, dams, canals. In the field of electricity also, he contributed a lot. The establishment of Damodar Valley Corporation in Bihar and Bengal, Bhakra Nangal Dam, and other many such projects were initiated on the basis of his recommendation and his hard work that he did in the Viceroy's Council. Friends, let us now move to the final and last part of my talk, which is relevance of Dr. Ambedkar in today's economic problems. Some of them I will discuss, however, in the Indian economy. According to me, there are a few well recognized economic problems which India as a developing economy is facing in recent times, and these are the economic slowdown and poor developmental outcomes, problem of massive unemployment and underemployment, growing inequality and poverty, and fragile central state financial relationship. Those of us from economics background recognize that the present economic crisis or economic slowdown even before the pandemic came in March 2020 is primarily due to the deficiency in demand. Massive unemployment along with growing inequality and substantial portion of population below poverty line has been creating a kind of vicious circle and preventing our economy to perform as per its potential. With working age population in majority at this point of time in India, the country should reap the benefit of demographic dividend. Rather, it seems that it turns out to be a demographic disaster as some of the economists are feeling. All those who have studied economics know a gentleman called Arthur Lewis, who was awarded Nobel Prize in Economics in 1979 for his contribution to the research on economic development, particularly considering the problems in developing countries. His contribution to the economic development with unlimited supply of labor was published in 1954. This was one of his research for which he got this Nobel in 1970s. He argues that the unlimited supply of labor are available at a constant real wages through capital formation and investment. This labor can be transferred to the modern industries. So, this is how people shift from agriculture to industry and finally to the services sector. But very little would know that more than 3 decades prior to Arthur Lewis, his work, Dr. Ambedkar in 1918 had written an article on the first issue of Indian Economic Journal of Indian Economics Association, where he propounded the economic theory of development, its kind of model for India in the essay Farm and Farm Holding. The principal of Sydenham College, where Dr. Ambedkar was teaching political economy at that time, was the editor of this journal. So, he wrote this piece for him. Dr. Ambedkar agreed that Indian agriculture is overpopulated, or there is a over dependence of population in the farm sector. He recognized that there is huge disguised unemployment in India, both unemployment and underemployment in the country due to heavy dependence of population in agriculture. After examining various proposals to consolidate and enlarge such land holdings that were being debated in those days, Ambedkar came to conclusion that such proposals were fundamentally flawed. Dr. Ambedkar argued that land was only one of the factors of production required in produce crops, and unless it was used in an optimal proportion with other factors of productions, it would be inefficient largely. Land holdings should therefore not be fixed, but should ideally vary with the availability of other factors of production. I mean, this is a new idea that he was giving. I mean, all the factors has to be used in a efficient proportion. That was basically he was arguing for. Okay. He said that for industrialization to take place, there has to be savings, and these heavy dependence of population on agriculture for their livelihood, he said, cannot lead to industrialization in the country. Okay. So, the surplus labor from agriculture has to be engaged in industrial activities which will lead to rapid growth and development of the country. He argued that the economic growth would take place through increased labor productivity, increased wage income, increased share of wages in the value addition. So, equality, it will bring equality, and subsequently both income saving and inequality will take place in the country. It will bring prosperity both in agriculture and industry. He argued that the solution to the problem of agriculture in a way is industrialization for the country. Friends, even today we are struggling to increase the share of industrial sector in our GDP. The recently, 6 years ago, launched the Make in India strategy could not gain momentum despite all publicity and campaigning from the government of India. Many of these problems are still relevant for Indian economy, which Dr. Ambedkar pointed out. Another prominent and burning problem of Indian economy is inequality and poverty. There is a famous economist, namely Simon Kuznets, who got his Nobel Prize in economics in 1971 for his deep insight into economic and social structure and economic development. Kuznets argues that in the beginning with economic growth, inequality would rise, but after a certain point of time, through improvement in employment and through backward and forward linkages of new economic activities, the inequality will decline. The labor and the poorer will get a larger share of the benefit of economic growth. So, it is famously known as inverted U-shaped Kuznets curve in economics. However, the experience of some of the Latin American and other some of the other emerging countries during the second half of 20th century did not experience as per the hypothesis of Kuznets. We followed almost all the countries followed him his theory, but the experience of some of the countries in East and Southeast Asia, those who did not follow Kuznets completely and invested in human capital formation such as health and education, got better results. This is what Dr. Ambedkar was arguing, and also made constitutional provisions for a better human resource development through government investment in education and health, along with investment in infrastructure, so that India can be a just and egalitarian society. But after his death, we as a country or society failed him by not adhering to what he wanted for this country. Dr. Ambedkar is the first among the modern economists who talked about economics of caste system or the caste system in annihilation of caste that he wrote. He said that caste system is a hindrance to the development as it restricts the economy from get the benefit from the scientific concept of division of labor. He said that the system in India is division of laborers instead of division of labor. He spoke about the importance of social and economic democracy and said that without promoting economic and social democracy, the political democracy will not sustain for a long period. Here it is essential to quote Dr. Ambedkar on the 26th, he says that on the 26th January of 1950, we are going to enter into a life of contradictions. In politics, we will have equality, and in social and economic life, we will have inequality. In politics, we will recognize the principle of one man and one vote, one value. In our social and economic life, we shall, by reason of our social and economic structure, continue to deny the principle of one man, one value. He says, how long shall we continue to live this life of contradiction? How long shall we continue to deny equality in our social and economic life? If we continue to deny it for long, we will do so only by putting our political democracy in peril. We must remove this contradiction at the earliest possible moment, or else those who suffer from inequality will blow up the structure of political democracy, which this assembly, he was speaking before the assembly members at Constituent Assembly, which the assembly has so laboriously built up. What Dr. Ambedkar suggested during the first half of 20th century, the world is recognizing in the 21st century. If we look at the UNDP, World Bank and other international institutions deliberations of last 3 to 3.5, 4 decades, we find that now they all are talking about making the economic growth pro-poor for sustainability of the growth. India too, based on the observations of these institutions, took some steps in these directions, especially after 2004. For example, let us look at some of the themes or objectives of the last 2 5-year plans, which we implemented in the 21st century. For example, the theme of the 11th 5-year plan for the period 2007 and 12 was towards faster and inclusive growth. The theme of the 11th 5-year plan, it was faster and inclusive growth. For 12th 5-year plan, it was more inclusive, more faster and sustainable growth. The champion of inclusive growth and development economists are talking about the growth for discriminated groups at a higher rate than that of the privileged one, to bring equality and sustainability of the growth. Recent research by some development economists found that the benefit of economic growth is determined by the ownership of means of production by different social or ethnical groups. In case of India, we know that there is a huge gender, caste and religious inequality in the possession of assets and wealth. We also have inequality in access to education, health facilities as well as on employment opportunities. Therefore, it is essential, instead of making ad hoc arrangements and tinkering with the existing policies, we must hit at the structure, because without structural changes, both economic and social, which Dr. Ambedkar had been arguing for during late 1940s and early 1950s, which was also manifested in his last speech at the Constituent Assembly on 25th November 1949, as I quoted above early on. It is nearly impossible to bring overall development of the country. We must also acknowledge that his efforts, which he made through constitutional provisions, did bring some results, but not the desired results, due to half-heartedly implementations and also due to social, political and economic conditions which prevailed in the country after 1950s. India still has to go a long way in this regard. and Dr. Ambedkar is the way out. All his research contributions that we mentioned are of historical in nature, but have practical implications for even contemporary economic problems. Therefore, branding him as a Dalit leader alone is a huge mistake for the nation and injustice to him and his pioneering and worthy contributions to both the principles of economic principles in the field of public finance as well as monetary economics, and his contributions in effective policy suggestions or policy making whenever he got a chance. By ignoring his ideas and thoughts, the country has had enormous loss in achieving the level of development otherwise we would have achieved in last say 70 years or so, 60 70 years or so. In a way, the emerging countries in the East and Southeast Asia did achieve in last few decades. As it is clear that Dr. Ambedkar is understudied in this country, most we must stop. Uh, I should stop here by saying that the great opportunities are there are there if we follow Dr. Ambedkar, okay, to get to achieve real economic development for all sections of the society, okay, in this country. Thank you and Jai Bhim to all of you.